The Speed Coaching Series is really a unique opportunity for SMEs to connect with industry leaders in South Africa, entrepreneurs that have been there and done it all. We really think that this is an opportunity for SMEs to learn, engage, and find some key nuggets that can help them in their own growth journey.
The goal of the series is to bring together SMEs and top entrepreneurs from various industries to engage together in an interactive session of mentoring and coaching. The kind of challenges that SMEs face in South Africa is really about survival and sustainability. Many SMEs struggle to get the funding for working capital, but also funding to grow.
The other aspect is obviously access to market and being more competitive in terms of their own growth. But if we take a step back and just look at the basics, the fundamentals is how do we get companies to at least have sustainable companies in terms of their finances, their cash flows, and if you get the fundamentals right, the rest are then building blocks in terms of their growth story.
What I hope this series will aim to achieve is that in the future or a year or so, we'll see SMEs achieve that growth objective, grow their businesses to such an extent they increase the number of people they employ, and also play quite a prominent role in the economy of the country.
The Speed Coaching Series brings together industry experts and entrepreneurs that have been there and done that. And the benefit for SMEs that participate in this series is really that they, one, get to interact with these experts directly and ask them the questions that they need to know in terms of growing their own businesses. But more than that, we've focused the topics on subjects that SMEs really want to know about. Everything from how to sustainably drive cash flow, manage their finances.
The series will cover a variety of topics, what the SMEs need from the mentors. So it could go from marketing, how to actually grow your business, how to manage your business financially, looking at operational advice, but also leadership advice for those entrepreneurs who are planning to grow their businesses. We have a marketing plan in place to encourage SMEs to participate. All you have to do is to register for free, and then the session will be live streamed on YouTube. Thereafter, you'll have access to watch it.
This is an amazing opportunity for SMEs, so we encourage each and every SME in South Africa to join us. The session is free, they can register online and take full advantage of the opportunity to connect with amazing industry experts and leaders and hopefully learn a thing or two for their own business growth. Good day, entrepreneurs, and welcome to another episode of the JSE SME Speed Coaching Series. Today, we are still talking about financial health and the financial health of your business. We have discussed quite a few things from capital raising to how to ensure sustainability of your finances in your business. And today, we're really going to delve into a little bit more of the functional requirements for the financial health of your business. And these are the tools and services that you need in order to maintain and sustain the growth of your business. Today, I am joined by two seasoned entrepreneurs and businessmen who know everything from the do's and the don'ts and the tools and the trends, of course, in terms of financial wellness, financial tools, and financial services. I'd like to welcome on my far end, Gerald Mwandabira and also Sean Clark. And I want to ask, and Gerald, start with you to please introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit, about yourself and how you have grown in the financial industry.
My name is Gerald Mwandabira, and yes, I started off as a corporate executive in an insurance company, started my own financial planning practice, and it's evolved over time into training and development, property, and simply a one-stop shop for anything to do with wealth. I'm also very passionate about financial education. So that's something I do on the side in terms of ensuring that as many people as we can get to understand the need for financial inclusion and financial empowerment.
Brilliant. And I know that Gerald is a little bit of a financial activist because when I first met you, it was through the National Savings Association and the work that you're doing there as, in your voluntary and activist capacity. So I'm really excited to have you here and hopefully we can learn a lot in terms of how to sustain and maintain and grow our businesses as entrepreneurs. And Sean, over to you. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Park Advertising and what you do.
Yes, thank you, Cleone. I am Sean Clark is the name. I'm Finance and Operations Director for Park Advertising. We're a specialist media company, so we operate in the advertising agency space, but we deal with radio stations, television stations, digital companies, Google, Facebook, people like that, in securing advertising space and time for our clients. So we don't have to do any design of advertising as such. That's done by creative agencies. So we don't employ any art directors or copywriters. And business has been around for some 34 years now. We started off as a tiny little business. I've been in the business 32 years now myself, from almost nothing startup to now one of the largest in the market. Billings are somewhere in the order of about 4 billion rand a year. So that's what sort of keeps me busy during the day. And then weekends, I love my golf, and I play most of my golf at Brian's Country Club. I serve on the committee there as a finance chairman, and I also sit as a trustee on a charity trust that we started a few years ago, which is about staff development and helping them with education and training and uplifting people that are either staff or children of the staff at Brian's Country Club. So that keeps me busy very much on weekends. So that's pretty much me.
I'd hate to ask what your handicap is.
Oh, I'm not that good, but it's fair. It's not great.
It's fair.
The JSE offers SMEs the opportunity to fast-track their business potential and bridge the funding gap to grow. We aim to harness the potential of our SME sector and provide insights and network building for the incubation, acceleration, and capital raising stages of private companies in South Africa. Our priority is to nurture your business prosperity.
We as a company really are very passionate about growing the economy, supporting the people of South Africa, whether it's employment creation, whether it's being more competitive, and of course attracting more investment into the country. And a big part of that is, having the new Naspers, the new Old Mutuals of the future. And that can only happen through significant support. So that was the inspiration, right? We are doing more than just the acceleration program. We're driving a lot of initiatives in terms of SME development.
Find out more about our SME initiatives at www.jse.co.za/SME.
Well, you clearly are very busy, and I mean to grow a business over 30 year plus, from a basically a nothing business, an idea, and a lot of people and entrepreneurs start with an idea, an ideation, and trying to say, okay, how do I grow that business? And not just to start with, okay, trying to get funding, but also how do I sustain it? How do I maintain it? And how do I ensure that my business is sustainable over a period? I think that is really phenomenal to now a 1 billion rand business. I mean, well done to you and everyone in Park Advertising to really, have done this, especially in the advertising space, which isn't easy by any stretch of the imagination. So looking forward to really learning a lot from you. I'm going to kick off and ask, what are some of the top things that you would consider, or any entrepreneur and SME should consider in terms of their journey when they look at financial services and financial tools? And I'm going to pose the question to both of you, and maybe Sean, start with you and say, if I'm an entrepreneur, what are some of the top things that I need to consider when I, look at the financial tools and financial services for my business?
I think it's vital to have a relationship with a bank to get the show on the road. You might need access to financing, and if you do not have a good relationship with a bank, it makes it very difficult to operate as a business. So you need to, from the get-go, have a banker that understands your business and that you can communicate and talk with them and build a relationship, which takes some years. But if you need access to finance, if you don't have a bank that's your partner, you're immediately in trouble. So that to me is the first thing that you need to secure when you open a business is, who is your banking partner going to be?
Oh, wow. That's a little bit daunting for a lot of people. I don't know, because I agree with you. But how do you secure that? Because a lot of people feel like, I go to a bank, I need to apply for credit, and it's a really rigorous process. Do you just start with a small account and then have the conversations, or do you immediately go and say, I need access to credit? What is that process and approach for that relationship to work?
Well, I had to do that exercise when I had joined the business, and we were then very small. That first year I was there, we built 29 million rand in the year, and we were dealing with one of the banks in South Africa, and they didn't understand our business, so they made it extremely difficult for us to operate. And I literally went to the bank next door, and I said, "Could I speak to the manager?" Those days you still had bank managers in branches. And I said to him, "This is our business. This is what we're about. And we're looking for a partnership where we can work together in helping us grow our business." And that bank is still our banker now 32 years later.
Absolutely. So shop around. Don't just take the first answer you get and get that right relationship for your business.
And be honest. And never mess your banker around either. So in the old days, don't bounce a check. Always make sure that if you're short of money because you have to pay something, talk to your bank. If you keep talking to them, they will support you.
Amazing, amazing. And Gerald, for you, what do you think are some of the top things to consider?
Look, I think, for newer businesses, especially in this current environment, things have changed. So whilst when he started his business 29 years ago, those branches and managers, now they aren't there. And it's very difficult to build a relationship with a financial institution because you're talking to a screen and a call center. So what I find is for newer businesses who have not managed to have that relationship in place, a bank simply becomes a tool to transact. And unfortunately, if you now have the modern environment where the banks are now simply transactional partners, you need to now be very rigorous in terms of your documents. Because now when you're dealing with a call center with no emotions, no feelings, they're looking at a credit score, they're looking at an average turnover, they're looking at an average balance, and that's how they'll make every decision around your business. So it's important then that you have the right documentation in terms of tracking your activities. So as much as you explain what your business does, you now need to explain it in terms of the numbers, and that's now talking to have a good bookkeeping professional or an accountant from day one. Someone who can basically start building your annual financial statements like you're a big company, even if you're just a small startup, because everything needs to be correctly categorized. Everything needs to be correctly recorded, because now when you're dealing with these heartless financial institutions or banks, that's all they're going to look at. They're going to say, your bank statements do not correlate with your annual financial statements, and they don't correlate with what you're telling us. And I kind of regret that we've lost that personal touch of having someone you can call in the bank who's got your back. Occasionally now they'll tell you you've got your personal banker, but that person has probably got 300 people. And all of you are simply numbers and average balances. And he works according to who's got the most. So I think, it's important that you, yes, get a good banking partner in terms of transactions, but because the relationships no longer count as much, focus on your record keeping and bookkeeping and ensure that those are in order. And that obviously also translates into having good documentation for SARS. And why you need a bookkeeper is because SARS have become highly automated now. They talk to the banks all the time. So things like your VAT, your employee taxes, pay as you earn, you need to ensure that every 2 months you go on and someone is updating and recording that information, because once you're flagged as non-compliant, your bank also gets that same message, and it can actually block banking transactions or even business transactions if you're non-compliant. So I think I agree. Banking partner is critical. Record keeping even more critical, because the one thing most entrepreneurs start off with is a dream. And that dream does not involve accountants, doesn't involve tax, doesn't involve bankers. It involves what I'm going to do to change the world and be the next Elon Musk. And doesn't quite always work out that way. Compliance, record keeping, very important on your, especially around your finances. Finances are all about integrity. And Integrity is defined for people as what you do when no one is looking.
Oh.
That's your integrity. You know, do you have an extra suite when no one's looking? So it's back to old school basics. Your word is your bond. Don't bounce a check. Don't reverse debit orders. Don't dishonor your promises. So integrity is very important. So because we're dealing with numbers and a system which is automated now, whenever numbers don't align, automatically you're flagged as something's wrong.
That's very interesting. And I especially appreciate the part about SARS, because often that's the last thing we think about. And that's the last thing we want to navigate until it actually bites us and we're like, oh, shucks, what now? You know, I, had to YouTube a lot of things, to to learn and obviously go on a lot of sites. What are some of the sites and tools and that you can go to really learn about these things? Because if for instance, the business I want to start is in agriculture or I am in a specific space, I'm not, a lot of people are not financial experts, and it's great to get a bookkeeper, but surely you need to know a lot of things for yourself. And Gerald, I'm going to ask you, what are some of the places you can go to really inform yourself and equip yourself, or who can you speak to?
Okay, I think, there's a danger with the internet. There's too much information, and there's also a lot of misinformation. So as much as, Cleola, you're saying it's important for you to understand as much as you can about things which affect your business, you don't need to be a tax practitioner to deal with SARS. You don't need to be a banker to deal with your bank. As a small business person, rather get used to the idea of hiring professionals to deliver services for you. Okay? And for me, I would say rather work with going through the relevant professional bodies of whatever skill you're looking for. If you're looking for a tax practitioner, rather go onto the CITA website and see who's the tax practitioners in my area. Let your professional be the person who guides you and teaches you about your business and how it's impacted by the service they're offering you. The problem is most small business people say there's Dr. Google, so I'm not going to hire anyone to do my taxes. I'll Google everything, go on the SARS website, and I'll know everything. No, you won't. Okay? Same thing with your personal finances or your corporate finances, insurance. You can Google it to death, but it's just better for you to get a financial planning professional and pay them. That's the biggest challenge, is that, if you start your small business and you're not used to paying for services, why should you then want other people to pay you for rendering services? Because you can't say, I'm running a huge advertising firm and I'm billing everyone, but when I receive a bill, it's the last thing I want to deal with. We need to realize that when you're small, you don't have resources you can hire. So rather pay professional services bodies and companies to do some of this work. And in some instances, you do get companies who offer 360-degree services in terms of all your back office work. Rather pay that retainer. And yes, I would say if you want to learn more about that field, learn from the person who's offering the service to your company, because they know your company, and then they can help you to understand which taxes affect you more. Which areas you can claim deductions in for your business. Otherwise, you become a generalist, and it's a huge danger. I'm very much against people who look at the internet and metaverse and believe that it's more powerful than an individual. You still need to deal with people. So I would still say, get your professional who you can trust, build a relationship over time, pay them for their services, and let them grow with your business. And that's how that's the best tool you can start using. Yes, the Investopedias, websites for financial terms, etc. They're important so that you don't look like you're totally inept.
Yes.
But as Steve Jobs once said, I hire clever people to give me advice on things that I know less about. It's been paraphrased. So respect the professional you've hired. Because another big challenge you get as entrepreneurs or small business owners is you get advice and you challenge it. Why would I challenge somebody who studied accounting and tax and finances, who's advising me to do this for my business because I simply don't want to pay?
Yes.
And that's a challenge. Embrace advice, embrace knowledge, and if you're paying a professional, embrace the value add they bring to your business.
Well, I mean, I studied finance and I have a financial advisor. So, you know, it just because you know something, even if you're in that space, you always need an expert eye and somebody who does this on a regular basis, because that's their core. That's what they focus on, and they can really guide you. You know, anecdotally, it's the same as the WebMD when I've got a headache and I'm Googling all my symptoms and suddenly I walk away with high blood pressure and I'm about to die in 50 seconds, you know. So there is a danger in using, you know, online solutions. But I do want to ask, are there not tools that you can use, at least to track certain things? There must be some tools and solutions. Sean, are there any tools that people can use?
It's difficult. It depends on what industry you're in and what business you're trying to build, because there will be industry-specific tools which one would need to utilize. And I think part of finding out about that is to deal with an industry body. So if you are in agriculture, there are agricultural bodies, associations of farmers, for example.
Yes.
Get to meet those people. You will learn a lot from them. They will also introduce you to people that will assist you. And I think that that's a good starting off point. Deal with an industry body, join that industry body, so that they often have training sessions and programs of development and that. And that exposes you to that space where you will then learn more. Because as much as what you might think you know everything that you're trying to do in your new business, there's other people that have gone before you, and use those opportunities to learn as to what tools are specific to that industry and that business that will assist you. I think the other thing as well is that, you know, further Gerald's comments about having professionals assist you. So having your accountant, and those things are not necessarily expensive anymore, because your accounting systems today are in the online space, in the cloud space. So that makes it a lot more affordable. And you can buy those services so cheaply relative to if you have to go and have an expensive accounting system in-house in your business. But it also allows your consultants to handle those processes for you, but still give you line of sight. Very simple and very easily and very cost effectively. So I think that those are the opportunities that are there for you to learn and grow, so that you yourself can build your business, and people will help you, because they're going to show you some of the pitfalls that you might not have thought of. And so you expose yourself to those. There might be competitors, but those industry organizations will actually assist you.
That's actually a very good point. And I want to ask you, you're talking about some tools, you know, that are in the cloud. You know, do I get like the banking of tools, you know, everything from payroll tools to, you know, what is like, because there's so many things. And if you consider a small business, what are some of the fundamental tools that they do need? Really, like saying, okay, at least as a base, you need X, Y, and Z. And then you can, as you systematically grow, you know, kind of accumulate other tools.
So bringing in your accountant, for example, they're going to have an accounting system. They have to manage your payroll as well. So a lot of the systems today are relatively cost effective that will do your payroll for you, ensure that you remain tax compliant, pay your UIF contributions that need to be paid, but at the same time do your accounting. And very simplistic. Many of the banking systems now download automatically into those accounting systems. So you can set that up that they do it automatically every single morning. So it makes it so much simpler that you don't need, you know, expensive accountants working many hours to handle your small business. A lot of those things are much more automated these days. So you want to use your accountant for their knowledge. They don't necessarily have to sit there and do a lot of doing. Because the systems and technologies are so much more advanced these days.
Yes.
You know, even point-of-sale systems these days are all cloud-based. You don't need to have expensive point-of-sale systems. You remember years ago, to have a card paying machine was a big thing. Now people, when they deliver your food at your home from Uber Eats,
They've got
the
a
man
machine.
takes out a little thing that's the size of a cell phone and you swipe your card.
Yes.
Those things didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. Those things are all available to you now, which makes it so much easier for you to transact
Yes.
with your customer, whether it's the public or whether it's other businesses and so on, so that you've these tools simplify your life.
Yes.
So that your time is spent focusing on your business, not on worrying about the compliance and those management things, as much as what they're very important. Because if you can't win a piece of business if you don't have a tax compliance certificate, for example. No matter how small your business is, any big corporate that's going to want to deal with you wants your tax compliance certificate. It's a given. You can't operate without it. So by bringing in the right resource to help you, that's cost effective, using those right online cloud-based solutions, it becomes easy for you to operate your business, so that you still remain outwardly focused in growing your business, not sitting there worrying about your accounting.
Yes, absolutely.
So yes, I mean, like your accountant, why would I need a bookkeeper as a small businesses? My bank gives me a free accounting software anyway. But they teach you that when you do your payments, the references and the words you should use. Is this a sundry? Is this a business expense? You know, so that when the words are picked up by the system, they go into the right compartments when they do your monthly management accounts. So if it's a sundry, if it's petty cash, you need to be able to record it correctly. So you need the expert to help you set up. Okay, so yes, payroll is key, and that's linked to your bookkeeping and accounting functionality. Other key systems to have, depending on the type of business you run, is customer management systems. Every business used to have filing cabinets of files and files of client information. So now what you need to do is to get yourself a cloud-based system which allows you to have a database of your clients. And depending on what you're doing, sometimes you also want a database which tracks activity. So then you get little software like Salesforce, which is there for tracking leads and progress. So if you have sales reps, they can track which are the warm leads, which are the hot leads, and you almost use that tool to help you to focus and prioritize your time. Because the resource you have in your business is time. And you don't want to waste time on things which are not generating income. So you want to rather focus your time on getting the right leads, networking at the business association, because even though it's other seasoned professionals or even competitors, you can see what's going on in your landscape and get ideas and insights on which way things might go. Okay, so it's absolutely important. So a CRM system, key. Payroll system, very important as well. It's also very important to have inventory of your assets. And now I'm talking about insurance. Because, you know, when things do go wrong, you need to know what was there.
Yes.
You know, and now this talks now back to the physical assets. Whether you have desks, chairs, etc., you need to account for them. Again, it's ultimately linked to that accounting function in terms of record keeping. So as a small business, most small businesses fail on record keeping. Record keeping is compliance. Record keeping is the state of affairs, which is why small businesses are often, you know, fail, not because the idea was not working, not because they were not even generating turnover, but often because their cash flow or their time was not being spent on the right things at the right time. So those are particularly important for a small business person. In my experience also, another important system to invest in is HR outsourcing, or if not HR outsourcing, subscribe to a vetting service like MIE.
Okay.
Reference checking. And reference checking applies not only to your internal staff, but also your business counterparties.
Yes, indeed.
So before I go and I present him as the big client who wants to do a 45 billion rand ad campaign, he has to check me out. So he needs a system where you can say, Gerald's company, what do they do? Do they pay their bills on time? Do they, do they have a good standing financially? So it's important that you also invest in some sort of reference system where you can vet not only customers, but also business counterparties and do credit checks. Because business is all about, again, integrity. People who have low credit scores or fail on credit checks have low integrity. They miss payments. Their word is not their bond. Do I really want to do business with that person? If I do business with that person, maybe I should charge them more because things can go wrong. So it's important for you to also invest in a reference system where you check clients, counterparties, as well as your own employees. And obviously, that's with your employees, it speaks to the risk inside your business as well.
Yes.
Often, many small businesses have been undone by one employee. One employee doing fraud can actually cut the legs off your business and you're over. You're done.
Crazy.
So it's important that you actually invest in understanding the people who you're working with around you internally, the people who you're working with externally, and the businesses and juristic persons you're working with externally. So already you can see there's a lot. And most small business people don't think about these things. They're just so happy that they've got a purchase order. But they don't know half the time that there's fraudsters out there who will make you buy stock, deliver it, and disappear. And because you didn't do your due diligence, you lose out. I'll give you an example. In our business, there was once an opportunity we got, which was so big. And my wife and I were so happy. We were like planning our holidays and cars and houses and retiring with this one deal. But we didn't do our due diligence. On closer inspection, after things had gone wrong, just a Google search showed that we were wasting our time. It was never going to be. Hello, Peter. Yes, there you go. Complaints websites as well. Go on the complaints website, see what people are complaining about. Yes, there's always unhappy people in the world who complain about the sun is too bright, or the sun is not here today. But that also gives you an indication of the temperature of the people you're dealing with. I think the one word I want anyone watching to get out of this today is integrity. They're very important words which start with the letter I in business. Integrity will determine your income. So it's important that you always, when you're looking at anybody, do they have good standing integrity? And will they bring me income? If not, as a small business, walk. Move on to the next.
Absolutely agree with that. And one of our previous episodes, it even starts with having a website, investing in certain things. So I'd use another I in there. Investing in yourself and investing in the things that matter that will ensure the credibility and sustainability of your business. I want to talk a little bit about just the financial decisions that matter in kind of almost a bit of a sequence. There's the personal financials, there's the business financials, and maybe Sean, you can talk a little bit about that and say, what are some of those considerations?
I think also the structure of your business is important. So I always liken a business to a bucket that you're filling with water.
Yes.
So water coming into that bucket is your revenue. Money that's coming into that business, but you've got holes in that bucket. And some of those holes have to be there because it'll be your staff, it'll be your overheads, your infrastructure of machinery, plant, whatever it is, office space, things like that. Those holes are there. They have to be there. So there's an outflow of water out of that bucket. So you need to make sure that you manage the size of those holes. But then you have other holes which come from things like fraud, inefficiency, mistakes by your staff, system failures, things like that, clients who don't pay. Okay, those are holes that you really need to work at to keep those holes closed in your bucket. Otherwise, as much as what the water is going into that bucket, the water's flowing out quicker. Ultimately, that bucket's going to be empty and your business is going to collapse. So you need to manage those your various expense categories, ensure that the structure is right. Far too many people will go and win a nice big contract and think, okay, well, now I can go buy myself a sports car. You can't do that. That sports car is a hole in that bucket you didn't need.
Yes.
So what you need to go and do is say, no, I don't need that sports car today. What I need to do is put that money back and reinvest it into my business so that for those lean months, I can survive. Think of the number of businesses that didn't survive COVID because they didn't have resources
Yes.
to keep their businesses going. Because they didn't have reserves. They didn't reinvest in their business. So that to me is vital that you do that. Have your structure, first of all, right. Have that, and that's where your other people are going to assist you, the various professionals that you've got. And if you can ensure that that works, monitor the holes in your bucket
Yes.
and the outflow of that water. Yes, it's critical to get the water into the bucket in the first place. But if you manage the bucket, the water going out that bucket, then if there's a little less water coming in the top of the bucket, you can still survive.
Yes.
And you don't get caught by events like a COVID, which decimated many, many businesses around the world.
Yes.
And if we think back, when the first stories of COVID started coming out in that January, by the end of March, we were in a hard lockdown in this country. Suddenly, your 5-year business plan went out the window. You had to start again. You had to start thinking, how am I going to run my business? And many businesses just couldn't cope with that. They didn't have the flexibility in their business. They didn't have the right structure, and they didn't have the right reserves to cope. And as a result, closed. And we know many businesses, because many of them survive hand to mouth by the nature. And many of them, the people had got those big deals and gone and bought themselves fancy sports cars. When
COVID came, couldn't even sell the sports car.
Precisely. Exactly.
Very true.
So-
Yeah, no, very true. Absolutely agreed. And I was even shocked to learn that 90% of the job losses during 2020 came from SMEs, including the owners themselves.
No, I think SMEs have a high failure rate. I mean, most small businesses fail, 89% or something, fail within the first 3 years. It's normal,
Yes.
okay? But with COVID, it became almost 100% of those businesses started between 2018 and probably 2022 failed, okay? As a small business person, be excited as well. COVID to me was the great equalizer because it meant that most businesses were brought down to bare bones, which meant that for you to start up a business and compete against a big company, you were the same. You're both working from home, you both have a website, and no one is looking at your fancy offices to
Yes.
see how big you are, and you can give them free tea and fancy coffee.
Yes.
So, as a small business person, I say COVID brought some exciting times. And that's how I looked at it with those lenses to say, an advertising business could blow up.
Yes.
Because suddenly, if he was the one who was always working remotely, seamless. COVID was great times.
Yes.
And we saw that even in financial services. The insurance companies who had invested in paperless transactions saw good times.
Yeah, they
Okay,
thrive.
so it's important. Equalizer effect. Another important part of your small business pack in terms of systems you need to place, legal. We haven't spoken about legal
No,
as
we
almost as important as accountants. And when Sean mentioned COVID, that came up. Because when COVID came, people started pulling out contracts
True.
and started talking about a force majeure clause.
Yes.
Okay? And many contracts did not have a force majeure clause, but all the big companies, they knew about force majeure. They just went to clause 3.1, force majeure, act of God, things we can't control, contract cancelled, bye-bye. But we've already invested in this contract. Force majeure. Sorry. Legal. When you are starting up your business, make sure your contracts are sound. An invoice is a legal document.
Yes.
There are certain things which need to appear on an invoice to make it valid. And most small business people don't think that. They just think some total, total Jew No. Total due is not even important. You need to have your company registration on your invoice. You need to have a physical address. If you have VAT, it needs to appear there. If your person who you're billing has a VAT, their VAT needs to appear on that same invoice. You know, all this speaks again where we started, compliance. So legal contracts are important. Also, COVID employees, boss. I'm not the government which said I must sit at home, but you promised to pay me a salary, sir.
Yes.
CCMA. 4 letters, most small business people. If you haven't been to the CCMA, you're not a small business yet. Because lazy employees, that's where they run to when things go wrong. You know, even let's say employees in general. After COVID, Sean can probably tell you stories where he had to keep paying salaries. If not, CCMA are calling him and they're bringing an employment contract. So I think we also need to realize when you're a small business, don't go into long-term marriages, financial contracts. Don't lease a printer for 4 years, because I am telling you right now that most small business fail in year 1. So the last thing you want is a 4-year contract. Office space, don't go and lease a big building for 5 years. No. As a small business, everything must be 12 months or month to month as much as possible. For your non-key employees, put them on fixed term contracts, 3-month contracts which are rolling.
Yes.
And make sure it's done properly, because if you don't do it properly, by default, that person becomes a permanent employee under the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. How do I know these things? Because I went through it. And I will tell you right now, I will never hire a permanent employee when I know my business is not yet permanent.
Yes.
And how do you know your small business is permanent? Survive 3 to 5 years. Then you can actually relax like Sean. Look at the way he's sitting. Sean is sitting very relaxed. He's even had to, he can even take off his tie. He doesn't have to impress anyone anymore.
I don't know.
But I'm inspired by someone like Sean, because he started from the bottom. And I think, you know, the fruits of your labor, you can enjoy them later. So delayed gratification is important, but yeah, legal, very key. All your contracts, any document which bears your logo needs to go through a legal expert. Yes, it's an initial expense, but do it right. Even your letterhead, it's not a logo. The directors need to be listed at the bottom. There's actually a process. It's a company form.
Yes, correct.
So we need to realize we ignore all these things. And please don't go on to templates.com and say that's where I got my employment contract.
Yes, of
That's
course.
where I got my invoice. That's where I got everything. Because when things go wrong, I will guarantee you your documents will not stand up in court. Your contracts will be cancelled and you will lose out. Also, because you are small, don't sell yourself short. I entered into contracts where I undercut myself 50% just for the relationship, foot in the door. But I'm not making money. And then COVID came, and then, I felt the pain. So
Yes, correct.
price fairly. All these things we're talking about, compliance, the lawyers, the accounting. You say, oh my gosh, it's so much money. But price it in. Price it in. It might add an extra 100, 150 rand to your invoice, but at least you know that you're now a sustainable business. Stop selling yourself short as a small business. Us small business people, we fail because we're too hungry to succeed, and we will do anything to take a shortcut. Price fairly. I'll even ask Sean a question. When you started your business, were your advertising rates far off the market? Did you sell your services for free?
Not a chance. Absolutely not. No ways.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. And I think we've even in previous series talked about pricing and talked about those types of things. I want to touch a little bit even on things such as terms and conditions, which you're talking about contracts. And, barring people going to template.com, often they sign certain contracts, but they don't really understand what payment terms and things they're agreeing to, and that impacts their cash flow. That impacts how they run their businesses, and then they're fighting with these companies. You know, are these things negotiable? Can they have these conversations with companies?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Sean?
Just because a vendor or a client comes to you with a set of terms and conditions, that's the starting off point of the conversation. That doesn't mean you have to now sign that piece of paper and say, okay, I accept all of these terms and conditions. So you need to be able to negotiate those terms and conditions. And it doesn't matter whatever that supplier or client is giving you as a piece of paper. Go through that in detail. Bring in your expert to assist you. If you're going to deal with a large multinational corporate, they're going to give you this 45-page contract. And you don't just sign it. You read it carefully. And you give it to your attorney to assist you with that. It's very, very important to do that. It's the same if you're a partnership. Maybe it's not just you in the business, but you've got a shareholder that's with you. Your shareholders agreement is vital. Because it's not there for the marriage.
Yes.
It's there for the divorce.
Oh.
And you need to plan for the divorce. So that when the divorce happens, it might be that your business is flying and you want to buy out your other partner.
Where's the money going to come from?
It's a divorce still.
Yes.
Your shareholders agreement must manage that process for you. And many people neglect that. And then what happens is now when you want to have that divorce, you want to buy out your partner or your partner wants to buy you out. Now you start the negotiation, but now you're already starting from behind the curve. Because why? Your emotions are now already into this conversation. Whereas when you do that shareholders agreement right up front, it's not an emotional thing. It's a legal contract.
Yes.
So it's important to get those things right. Read those things. Make sure you try and understand. And if you don't understand it, get help.
Yes.
And
Get an attorney to assist you. And you don't have to go to one of the biggest firms of attorneys to get that, you know, at their very high expensive rates. There are lots of attorneys that are much more cost effective.
Yeah.
They're smaller.
Yes.
And they will assist you in going through that process.
So, as they say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Correct.
Absolutely. And I absolutely agree with that. And one of the things you mentioned, Gerald, was around insurance. You know, I was shocked to learn that restaurants, for instance, that most of their losses comes from theft, you know, theft of stock. And they don't insure around these things. They don't plan for the risk. They don't plan for the worst. And what are some of the things that businesses need to consider when they're preparing for the risks and the worst case scenarios?
risks on businesses, it's COVID. Showed us flames. Sean is what is termed as a key person or key individual in his business. There's key individual insurance where if Sean was, God forbid, unwell, you can hire another person with Sean's talent or a team of Sean's to keep the business afloat. So it's called key individual insurance, especially for a small business where you are the brain. So it allows you that if you are sick, it can replace you. And in the event of your death, it also allows you to hire someone who's competent to keep the business going.
Yes.
If you're in a partnership, it's called a buy and sell policy. Buy and sell policy, which says that if we are partners and I die, a policy will pay cash out to Sean to buy my shares out so that my family can get what they want. Because when there's a death in a partnership, the last thing the wife and the family want is to run the business. They want cash.
Yes.
And that happened a lot in COVID, where people literally died. And the wife comes and the family says, we love this business, yes, but we want money. And you have to find that money. And sometimes that's the end of the business. As a small business, it's about, yes, planning ahead. On those legal terms and contracts, even a bank's terms and conditions, you can refuse some of the terms and conditions. Often if I receive a standard terms and conditions sheet, I will cross out certain sections I don't like and I will initial them and I'll sign them. And often there's an equally incompetent person on the other side who accepts it. Now when we now have a problem, I simply say, look, I signed and dated it and you accepted it. So take chances. Do not be afraid because it's a big organization. The big organization will always write a contract that favors them. But if you see a term and a conditions which you can't honor or a number you're not happy, it says 60 days and you want it to be 30, cross out the 60, write out 30, put your signature there. see what happens. They're not going to take it to the big lawyers and center in the big building to say this person wrote 30 instead of 60. 9 out of 10, they will accept it. So when you now want to cancel, they don't have a leg to stand on because they accepted it.
Yes.
So realize as a small business, you have rights. And a lot of the time we trade off our rights as business people for the sake of a contract. And these contracts often are never favoring the small business. Now, I'm not saying go and start canceling all your terms and conditions. No, I'm simply saying if you see something you're really against, go for it. And one of the terms and conditions which is often against small businesses is often they'll say that if you don't pay your bills, you consent to a default judgment. Whoo! Big matata, that.
Yes.
Because you're basically saying, I'm taking out this printer, and if I miss 3 months on this payment, you can ITC my business, which means that it's going to cancel all your other business, that judgment. When I see the automatic default judgment, I cross it out and say, hell to that, no. If I owe you money, we'll go to court and we'll go through the process. But I'm not consenting for you to take away my livelihood with a default judgment simply because I'm so hungry for your business. And a lot of contracts have those little clauses in there. And the big companies do it for convenience because they just then send it to their lawyers and this thing is done in 2 days. And before you know it, you've got an ITC judgment you didn't even know you consented to.
She was, and that's that can be devastating because that impacts you personally as well as your business.
Definitely. Kills you.
The other thing that one must also do your utmost not to sign an agreement is personal surety. Because when you start a business, you started, and I would imagine you always started as a company, so you have a corporate veil that protects you.
Yes.
Okay, and I would suggest start a business as a PDY Limited.
Okay.
Because it does give you measures of protection in terms of the Companies Act. And you need to ensure that your personal assets and your business assets are separate.
Yes.
Now, the moment you go and sign that surety for that printer, for example, the most simple thing, you just draw a line through that surety. Because the moment you sign that personal surety, something goes wrong in your business,
come for your house.
Gerald says it's going to go, your business has got a good chance of not succeeding. Now they're going to come and want to attach your furniture in your house or attach your car or whatever it is. And that is an absolute no-no.
Okay.
You, by absolute exception, agree to personal surety. And that'll be, for example, if you're taking out a substantial loan at a bank or something, they might do that. Or they might ask to attach a bond to your property. That's the only time you even consider something like that. Any other time, you just draw a line through those provisions and agreement.
Awesome. I think I went through that. Franchises often demand personal surety as part of you going into a franchise agreement, which is why I now say anybody who's talking a franchise, don't do it. Don't do it. Because they come with a success story.
Yes.
And they say, we'll probably never need this document. Ha! It's the first document they pull out when things go wrong. Hey, Viola, hey, personal surety. Are you married in community or property with your husband? Oh, great. We get his stuff as well.
Even better.
Big one. Big one. So these are the systems. And in all these systems now, scan all these key company documents and keep them somewhere. Okay? And it speaks to having a folder somewhere which only your someone you trust has, and it goes with your will.
Yes.
For example, as a small business person, have a will and have these documents there. But as Sean said, personal surety, absolute no-no. If a business which wants to do business with you is telling you all these nice things, but they won't continue because you won't give personal surety, yet they're saying there's a 90% success rate in our franchise walk. They're lying through their teeth because all they're doing is they're passing on risk.
Yes.
So it's a situation. Franchises is a game where they say, Cleo, I'm going to give you R1 million, okay? And you start this franchise. You need to make me 2 million rand, okay? If you don't make 2 million rand, you owe me the R1 million I gave you. So what have you done? Did you even need me? because you literally could have done it on your own without somebody
Exactly.
else's name.
Exactly.
Because the risk was always on you. So it's these little things, and I like the conversation we're having because, you know, a system or a tool doesn't always need to be a hard piece of hardware. System or a tool is simply knowing that I need to do this,
Yes.
and I think we've covered pretty much most of the things which are going to come to you. Marriage, yeah, that's an important one. Okay, I think, you know, yeah, the person you marry is your downfall or your success. And the type of marriage regime for a small business person should be an anti-nuptial contract with accrual, period, or completely anti-nuptial contract. No community of property marriage ever, if you're in business. Ever. No community of property marriage in business. If you're watching this video, say, no community of property marriage in business.
Ever.
Ever.
Actually, stay in separate homes.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Because you don't do it. You
Yes.
simply don't do it. It's already risky being an entrepreneur. It's risky. I mean, there's nights I've spent at my desk crying, you know, and there's just no plan.
Yes.
And I imagine you want to do that to an entire family.
No.
So it's important, you know, you do these things early. So if you have an inkling that you might go into business and you haven't married yet, just bear those words in your mind. It's
Yeah.
very important.
And if you are married in COP, change it.
Yes.
Look,
Change it.
It's difficult to change it, but yes, you can. The courts before didn't allow it, but because it's become more acceptable, you can simply use that as a reason to the magistrate. We're changing our marriage regime because one of us is going into business.
Exactly.
And it's an acceptable reason. Okay, it's only not acceptable if you're doing it to run away from debt which has already been accumulated. So often when you say we're doing it because one of us want to go into business, they'll then ask you to prove that you're not in debt and that
Yes.
you're in good standing. And then they'll approve it.
We have a few minutes left, but I quickly want to actually touch on debt, right? And the risks around going into debt when you are a small business and how to mitigate some of that. And then we can just wrap up with, you know, a few closing remarks.
Look, I think debt is unavoidable when you're starting a small business. Because when you start a small business, there's two ways you can get your funding. It's either debt or equity. Equity means I'm selling shares to someone else in my business to get their money to start up the business with it. But it's a type of debt because that person now owes shares in my business and I have to pay them a dividend.
Yes.
Okay, and they have oversight. Okay. The other way of starting a small business is through debt. And debt can come through family loans, can come through your own, what they call a shareholder loan, a loan from yourself to your business.
Yes.
It can start by a bank financing if your business is good enough, or angel investors, which is also another fashionable thing, or even now called crowdfunding. You can do that
Yes.
to start. But so debt is an inevitable part of small business. The most important thing is understanding how geared you are. So geared is just a fancy word of saying how exposed to debt are you. So you do not want to start a business which is 100% or 150% in debt from day one, because you'll never get out of it. So you need to realize that a certain amount of debt is acceptable, especially from a business perspective. However, once it reaches a certain level, you start a vicious circle where the interest being created by the debt is actually eating at your income. It's that hole which Sean was talking about.
Yes.
You start with a bucket which has one hole that's just a little bit too big. You know, because your bottle has a spout which is this big and your hole is that big. So no matter what happens, you are going to fail. So essentially, when you start your business, manage that debt, because there are certain sizes and certain debts which if you start with from day one, it's a matter of time, and it's an if situation. It's not an if you're going to fail, it's when are you going to fail? How long will you run? And typically, one of the big holes you can start off with is a franchise agreement with royalty payments. That's just a hole that often many people can never patch through.
Oh, that is very scary. Sean, I'm going to ask, if you do find yourself in that debt cycle as a business, what are some of the things that you can do to systematically, kind of crawl out of that hole, as it were?
I think the first thing is to talk to the people that you owe the money to. Do not stop talking.
Yes.
The moment you stop talking, they're going to get a little bit angry with you.
Yes.
So maintain your lines of communication. Be honest and be open and say, guys, I've just gone through COVID. My business has gone down, but I give you the commitment. And then if you go into a debt arrangement with your debtor and you agree to a payment plan, stick to the payment plan. If you don't stick to the payment plan, have a very good reason why you're not, but talk. Keep your lines of communication, because that person that you owe the money to, that creditor, is your friend as long as they continue to allow you to trade.
Yes.
The moment you lose them as your friend, you're in trouble, because they're going to then call in that debt. So that to me is vital. As long as you keep talking and you maintain an open and honest relationship,
Yes.
you will find that most creditors will talk to you. Most creditors will give you a line, as long as they can see that there's a chance of survival. So you need to
Yes.
present them with a plan. You need to show them that this is what happened, this is why I am in the position I am, whatever those reasons are. Oh, I might have had a bad debt,
Yes.
and therefore my cash is constrained at this point. But keep talking. The moment you stop talking, you lose that friend.
Yes. And it speaks to the integrity Gerald was mentioning.
Correct. Yes.
No, absolutely.
Introducing JSE Private Placements, the brand new state-of-the-art digital platform that smartly connects private companies with investors. If you're looking to raise debt, equity or pre-IPO funding for your company, or if you're an investor on the lookout for new investment opportunities, JSE Private Placements is the perfect one-stop platform for you. Powered by next-generation global fintech leader Globacap and driven by the JSE's deep understanding of the scaling up process, JSE Private Placements is revolutionizing the fundraising and investment world. Turn your blueprint into a reality with JSE Private Placements today. Register at jseprivateplacements.co.za. T's and C's apply.
So we've run out of time. Just some closing remarks in terms of, this journey for entrepreneurs, for SMEs. What are some of the key things that they need to kind of consider?
There's nothing more fulfilling than being an entrepreneur. All businesses start small. So every entrepreneur started this journey the same way. So even the big guys, the Elon Musks, the Steve Jobs, they started in garages. They know what it's like to be a small business. So it can be extremely rewarding. Okay.
Yes.
But it's also important to realize that there will be failures and sometimes things do not work out. Doesn't mean give up. Look at Richard Branson's story, how many businesses failed.
Yes, correct.
But he's had more that have succeeded. So it's the same story. If you're in that situation where maybe you failed this time around, don't give up hope. Hopefully some of the nuggets and experiences Sean and I have shared will give you hope to realize it can be done. Keep picking yourself up and keep learning.
Yes.
I think that's the one thing, even sitting here with Sean, I learned a lot, and that's the journey of the entrepreneur. You're always learning, but you own your own time and you have the freedom to live. I always say to people who are employed, as long as you believe that what they're paying you every month is what you're worth, then stay there. Some people are not built to be entrepreneurs, and it's okay. Because we entrepreneurs need employees, so we need them. So they must work for us. But if you have that urge to want to be an entrepreneur, also know there's huge risks.
Yes.
You can lose it all. You can have people say bad things about you when things don't work out. You can have nothing, zero bank balance, and no, Sean is talking about the bucket where water's going in. Sometimes there's just nothing coming into the bucket. You can just be holding a bucket with holes. And you have to live and talk to everyone whose hole it is and say, I'll fix it.
Yes.
And, so it's a huge risk, but it's extremely rewarding. But most importantly, manage your risk. And most importantly, I think the I word, which I'll take out today, is have integrity. When things are not working out, bail out quickly, pull the parachute. Don't crash and burn for the sake of something which you can see is not going to work out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sean?
When you start with this business, you have a passion. Never lose that passion. Believe in it. Believe in yourself. Go in eyes wide open. Understand the risks. Bring in the partners to help you to run your business properly so that you keep your integrity, as Gerald talks about integrity, but never lose your passion. Believe in what you believe in. And if you keep pushing outwardly,
Yes.
keep the basics at home right, but keep that passion and push outwardly and grow your business. That, I think, is ultimately the greatest feeling of all. When you then one day look back and say, there I am, I started this little business, and where am I today? And it might be 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years later. Henry Ford started in a garage.
Yes, correct.
It's a massive organization today. He believed in a passion. What did he want to do? He wanted to build affordable motor cars for people that were all painted black. It was simple. But that's what Henry Ford did.
Yes.
Built a massive business. Have that passion, and you will. The rewards ultimately will be immense.
And I think, just to steal one last parting shot, is some businesses are designed to remain small. Sean has grown his business because he chose to. But every business owner should have a limit to how much they want to grow it to. Not everyone wants to be a global corporation.
Yes, correct.
Sometimes your small business works as that corner shop, which has been there forever, but it consistently turns a profit and gives a good quality lifestyle and standard of living for its owners. So
Yes.
do not be afraid to be that business which will only ever make 100,000 profit, and you're okay with it because it's your lifestyle. You know, do not be tempted to always want to grow to be a global corporation.
Yes,
Sometimes you can be a very efficient small business which stands the test of time, as opposed to trying to chase lofty dreams, which sometimes can actually lead to you failing.
Absolutely. I've learned a lot today, and I think it is about, focusing on getting the fundamentals right and, paying attention to the details and bringing in the correct experts. So Sean, Gerald, thank you very much for your expertise. And SMEs, join us for the next episode of the SME Speed Coaching. Thank you.